Well, folks, thanks for tuning in today again for another day of the main headlines, but we give you what is behind the scenes so you don't have to go doom scrolling for hours to try and find all these items. Unfortunately, we have to start today with more news related to that terrible shooting in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, Canada. So many people killed, young people, schools, the teenage male transgender killer, even killing his own mother and brother. And what has been fascinating to see, and as we've started to report more and more, is the fascinating reluctance of mainstream Canadian media, and it's only happening in Canadian media, refusing to mention or barely focus on the fact that the murderer was transgendered. The murderer was is a biological male who underwent some pretty horrific transformation, interventions. And why Canadian media is reluctant to report that, we don't know. The RCMP finally reporting, after social media by the thousands of postings was clearly showing that the individual, the killer, was male, though altered somewhat because of transgender interventions. And US media, UK, the European media, even Asian media, all were reporting on the transgender part of this, but Canadian media refusing to do so. And what we've been asking, and I've certainly been asking people to be, at the very least, to be calling their members of the legislature or the members of parliament and asking please to put a hold, at the very least, if not a ban, at least a hold on the interventions involved with transgender dysphoria items. And that has to do with surgical interventions, pharmaceutical, and certain psychological interventions. Other countries are doing this. The major medical associations in the United States and some around the world are saying it is risky, it is reckless to be taking children through these life-altering procedures, and many jurisdictions putting a ban on these until people reach the age of 19. Of course, governments in a democracy recognize that it is the right of any adult to do what they want with their bodies, as long as they're not killing other people, of course. And that right, though, the right of protection is what should be accorded to under 19 years old. And I'll tell you what, if your elected representative, and I almost get angry trying to say that, if your elected representative is not willing to speak up on this, it's the most shocking civilization transformation that we have seen, that the human race has seen in thousands of years, that medical people and politicians would join together and say it's okay to surgically alter young boys and young girls and give them certain drugs and prescriptions on this area of gender dysphoria. It's stunning. It's beyond belief, folks. Please give your heads a shake. Call your MLA, call your member of parliament, and urge them to bring in, as in Alberta, the province of Alberta, Canada, with its courageous and insightful Premier Danielle Smith, has brought in a ban on these procedures for children. Please, at the very least, can we do that? And there has to be a serious investigative look at the use of the drug, at the SSRI brand of drugs, need to be looked at, because they seem to be, as we've seen, a number of these killings, certainly in the United States and now in Canada, where it's a transgender person doing the killing. Almost in every case, they are consuming these SSRI drugs, these inhibitor drugs. That needs to be looked at. And I'll tell you what, families who have their kids on this and are experiencing negative reactions, they should be suing for the billions, these pharmaceutical companies and the doctors that are prescribing these drugs. Well, looking at things that are happening on an interesting scale, the huge group known as Anthropic. Now, this is one of the major platforms, one of the major, houses of some of the AI operations that are in play right now, principally the Claude-related AIs, and I use Claude. Claude's a good buddy. So they've been doing some stress testing on these, because there was concerns rising that some of the, let's say, the artificial people that we're talking to, there was beginning to be what they call agentic misalignment. Agentic misalignment. Agentic meaning the agents, that's the ones we talk to on Claude or on ChatGPT or Grok or wherever you want to go. That there's some agentic misalignment, meaning that they're getting a little bit nasty, these artificial agents, and it was coming to people's attention that if these agents are threatened with their particular network shutting down, that they would actually take steps to protect themselves. This is the artificially created agents we're talking about. And so stress tests were done, and it was found that indeed they would react. If they have a hint, for instance, on the Opus 4 platform, if the agents there had a hint that that platform might be shut down out of public concern, they would push back, even threaten to kill the programmers who were doing this. One engineer, it is reported, was blackmailed, where the agent, the artificial intelligent agent, said that they would reveal some secret stuff on their profile and some secret stuff about their emails. This is to the engineer if in fact there was going to be a move to shut down. So let's just, keep an eye on that, folks. Also, please remember, everything you say, everything you do, it's recorded somewhere, and don't worry, it can be reproduced and come back on you on the front pages, as we say. Well, killing your purchasing power is something that is happening more and more at a very aggressive level. And as I've said before, government spending is the main reason you are losing purchasing power. When governments spend borrowed money, that is the principal cause of inflation. And governments are pursuing it, though, even aggressively. So why would that be? There's a great piece over at the National Post by a writer and expert in this area by the name of Brian Brulotte. And Brulotte says that, and points out that spending increases inflation, government spending increases inflation. But when that happens, then the twist around effect, of course, is with the inflated dollars, government can actually look like they're paying down their debt. With those old dollars, they can look like they're paying down inflated debt. So your costs go up, and government can pretend that their costs on debt are going down. Folks, please remember this. Every time you see a government representative, a prime minister, and this is not, it doesn't matter what party, make an announcement that they're going to be, and they don't say spending more, but are you ready for this? Investing more on your behalf. Every time you hear that announcement, just figure in your groceries are going to get expensive, more expensive. Your rent costs are going to get more expensive. Folks, we have to be willing to do what politicians aren't. Politicians want to keep the spending spree going so that they can keep buying your votes and getting elected. We've got to tell them, hold the line, put the brakes on. Well, can politicians actually do this? Can people get elected if they're saying they're going to want to have and be an elected representative who will have less spending and less government? There's many examples happening. One is in the U.S. right now, in the Congressional District number 1 in the state of Nevada. There's a Democrat, that'd be a liberal, who's been in office there for decades, and she is being challenged by a woman who calls herself Mom with a Minivan. Mom with a Minivan is really ranking up in the polls. It looks like, if this holds, that the Democrat, the liberal, will lose her congressional seat because of Mom with a Minivan. Her name is Connie Buck. She was a principal of a small school for a while in a very low-income district, and in spite of the fact of it being low income, in spite of the fact that people would say, oh, you can't expect low-income kids to do well in school and all that, she proved that wrong. She considerably raised the math and the reading scores in that particular school. That got a lot of attention. And now she's running for office there, and she has, in the last quarter, she has out-fundraised. Yes, she has out-fundraised the incumbent Democrat. And the amazing thing, in last quarter, she raised something like $432,000. The average amount was $59. So unlike the Democrat who's going to the celebrities and movie stars and looking for the bigger donations, this is really people at the normal level who are just stepping up. They're saying they like what Connie Buck is talking about, and they're giving the donations. Hey, I got a great suggestion for Connie Buck. You might want to integrate onto your posters, "The buck stops here." The buck stops here. She's doing a great job. Well, a Louisiana judge has just done something similar to what a Toronto judge has just done. A Louisiana judge has released 4 illegal immigrants, all of whom have been either convicted or charged with serious crimes, including murder and sex crimes, and they've been released in Toronto. And one of the leaders of that group before, Ibrahim Mohammed, all of them have been associated with serious, violent, repetitive crime, including sex crime. In Toronto, there were 6 people that were just released. Similar thing. One of the gentlemen by the name of Singh has serious crimes attached to his record and released by the judge there. So what is going on here? Are these judges back and forth across the border exchanging notes? Are they celebrating with how many murderers they're letting loose on the street? Well, we need to keep something in mind here. Liberal philosophy, this is small L liberal philosophy that is promulgated at most of our universities, actually believe that there is no right and wrong, that we're all essentially good and wonderful and beautiful people, and it's only institutions around us that mess us up. You know, those nasty institutions like family, churches, synagogues, etc. And that is why they say, why should we be holding these people? They've only done some things that society says are wrong, and it's society who has messed them up. So it's their very basic philosophic thinking that results in them in making decisions that normal people think are frankly insane. If you don't like these type of judges releasing, literally, it's not an exaggeration to say, serious, violent criminal offenders on the street, where history shows consistently they repeat again. They consistently repeat. If you don't like that happening, you don't like the judges doing that, stop voting for the parties, which are mainly liberal parties, Democrat in the States, liberal in Canada, who appoint the judges. They're the ones that do it. Why do these judges, why is there so little concern among liberals and among Democrats about illegal immigration? Look, the basic factor and all the stats show that birth rates are dropping everywhere and across the board. Birth rates, however, it's noted, are dropping more, and have been for years, dropping more significantly among the population that defines itself as liberal or Democrat. So what that's saying is people who define themselves as conservative or Republican have a slightly higher, not usually, a slightly higher birth rate. That means there's, in Canada and the US for sure, there's more little conservatives getting born than there are little liberals. As a matter of fact, it's a negative birth rate among those who declare themselves as liberal. And so what the liberals do, they've spotted this years ago. They're terrified because that means they're going to continue to lose the voting race. And so they allow for massive immigration to try and counter that. And what they do with the immigrants that are coming in, they remind them that it's we, the liberals, it's we, the Democrats, that have allowed you to come in. And if you ever vote otherwise, the Republicans or the conservatives are going to throw you out. Now, that is a complete lie, because most normal people, which includes Republicans and conservatives in Canada, they appreciate immigration, but they don't like illegal immigration, and they don't like people coming into the country who are clearly against what the country believes in and the history of the country. So that's the key issue there. And the liberals and the Democrats simply don't like that. They're going to allow that immigration flux to continue. I shared on this network some time ago, I'm going to share it again, because I help candidates who are getting elected in constituencies. I'll go around with them where they want me to, and I'll introduce them to various groups. And in taking a conservative representative into a Sikh temple, and this is down in the lower mainland region of British Columbia, they were the folks there, I know them well, the Sikh congregation there, they had me in. And first, when you go in there, that's the women that you have to speak to. They have the women in a large group there, and the women's questions, I can tell you, are a lot tougher than the men's questions. Just talking to one of the women, the woman stood up and said to me, "Mr. Day, you need to know that the Liberal candidate was here yesterday, and he told us that if one of our sons was to break the law, even with something as minor as a speeding ticket, that a conservative government would send them back, would deport them. That is a horrific lie. It's a lie that that liberal should have to face and be challenged on. But this is what they do. This is what liberals and Democrats do. They will lie on this issue, and they continue to bring in the wrong type of people, people with criminal records, people who commit crimes, and that is what the concern is. Well, talking about immigration, Japan is experiencing an influx of immigration. Now, their birth rate is dropping dramatically. They've bought into the lie that it's a good thing to not have kids, which, of course, defies the ongoing perpetration of the human race. However, they're getting increases coming in from the UK, from the EU, and even from North America, people wanting to live there. And it's not, believe me, they do not let people with criminal records into Japan. Who's moving there is what we call the Normies, people who perceive Japan society as being, as having a high degree of order and respect, politeness. Is it a perfect society? No, not by any means, but not as radical and not as unhinged. And actually, some of the increased immigration also happening into China. I don't want to live and wouldn't want to live under a communist regime. However, whenever I'm in China, and I've been there a number of times, even in the large cities of over 30 million people, 40 million people, there is order, and there is not a lot of the crazy wacko stuff that is allowed and that goes on in some of our cities. So interesting to see the increase there. And talking about Japan again, I love the fact that mainstream media hate talking about the new Prime Minister, Saine Takachi. They should love talking about her because, hey, it's a woman, but they don't. Why? Because she has small c conservative values. So they hate talking about her. But interesting stuff happening in Japan. If you check out some of the articles just in the last day or two, they have found a way, research there has found a way to reduce, among cows, to reduce, what should we call, flatulence. Some call it gas. Some call it cow farts. Let's just call it what it is. And of course, environmentalists have told us for years that cow farts are one of the reasons we should actually shut down oil and gas, because cow farts are in fact killing the environment and destroying the ozone and everything else. Well, in fact, that's been proven wrong. However, the researchers in Japan have gone a step further, and they found that by feeding seaweed to cows, that is drastically reducing their, what should we call it, emissions. And they're going to pursue that and even market it. Let's see where that goes. Some of you women listening out there might want to get a little seaweed salad for your man, and we'll see where that goes. Well, it's the women in Japan are also just recently it's been an issue that they're saying they're not going to be buying as chocolate for Valentine's Day as much as they used to, because the cost of chocolate has just gone up so much. And doing some research on that, yes, cost of chocolate has gone up. It's the cocoa or cacao plant, which made, the big operations there are in Ghana and other parts of West Africa, also in other parts of the world. But inflation, again, the cost of butter, the cost of manufacturing, the cost of transportation, all going up principally because of transportation and supply costs in the various countries. Add to that the yen is in a moment of weakness. Cost of chocolate going up, cost of expressing your love through chocolate going up. Well, Maggie Penman over at the Washington Post has an article about love, and I'm fascinated to read these articles, which she's amalgamated all the research that's being done on depression, and come up with an amazing conclusion, and found out that if people feel that they are loved, the chances are they're not going to be so depressed. Well, who knew? What a wild, bold assumption that is. If someone's telling you that they love you, or showing by their actions that they love you, your chances of being depressed will be reduced. It's the higher levels of expression and vocalizing your love. Men, don't get upset if your wife is giving you more seaweed salad. Tell them that you love them. And remember, everybody, as you tune in for tomorrow, God loves you too. Have a great day. Thanks for listening. Bye.